Welcome to week 4 of ENC 3250. This week is fairly straightforward. We have our company of the week that you'll be analyzing a problem, and then of course you'll be reading the chapter and answering the various questions posed through that chapter. Next week we begin with our capstone project, and so if you feel that you have extra time on your hands this week, what you might want to do is start correcting your writings if you did not make a 92% on them, and then the correction would go into your ePortfolio, and all you would have to do then is upload that. The corrections that you will be making thus far would be number 1, the JetBlue, number 2 is CMAX, and then Kaiser. So really the only 2 you could work on this week would be the CMAX and the JetBlue. And I wanted to take a few minutes to go over with you some of my findings on your CMAX response. You should be able to see the individual corrections on that activity. So please look where I have marked those on student responses. Okay, number 1, the assignment was about a wiki, and I had thought that most of you would have used a collaborative form of communication previously, but it became evident that many of you did not understand the concept behind a wiki, which it was actually discussed in the chapter, and it is an acronym for What I Know Is, and so it does give the collaborators of a project an opportunity to revise one another's work or to make revisions in general so that you don't have to meet face to face. And so if you said to the employee from Spain that she had no right touching your work, you totally missed the boat, because that's the purpose of a wiki. All right, it's collaborative editing. All right, so it's within her rights. It was your perception that her changes were excessive. Now, it could be it's a very subjective decision. Maybe you don't write that well, and so she felt a need. So basically, the assignment was to find out how you could work more collaboratively together, or how she was making her determinations for those changes. All right, your mention of whether or she was making changes, as many changes to the others, isn't really relevant. You never in a business environment point out, well, so and so didn't do as much work as I did, or you tended to choose more of his ideas. Another person is not relevant. And so that's never, in the adult business world, that is really not an argument. And in this particular case, you were out on a fact-finding. You should not have admitted that your work is either weak or strong. Right? So by saying, I believe my work is well written, you have no right to change it, is way off base. Your goal is to open the discussion. And a couple of you did have some good ideas, like you said that, could you point out a couple of specific examples and explain why the change was made, so that we can be on a better line of communication about those changes. Somebody else, I think, was insightful and mentioned that maybe they should go back and look at the kind of changes to see if they were warranted. Now, you should never threaten, and many of your tones were just very aggressive, that you were going to go to the higher ups. First of all, you should not threaten anybody in a communication. And I don't know what you mean by higher ups. I guess you mean upper management. But again, you have to take into account the limited amount of time that everyone has in the workforce, and certainly taking this to a higher level is not appropriate at this point. And HR would have absolutely nothing to do with it. So your suggestion for that is incorrect. Emails in general, please do not introduce yourself in the body of an email. Your name and your position is in the prefatory information. So you wouldn't say, hello, my name is so-and-so. That just makes no sense. It's redundant. Also, the advantage of using email is that you dispense with a salutation. So you do not say, Dear Sally, or anything of that sort. The to, from, subject, date take care of all of that. Please do not write the phrase, I want to say, or I just wanted to say. You're obviously saying it, so don't repeat yourself that way. And then at the end, do not write, thank you for your time and cooperation. You don't know if they're going to cooperate. I think it's being far too anticipatory. All right, most often, in a case like this, I think it would lend itself to what we call a call to action. Do not say at your earliest convenience, because we don't know what that means. That's a relative term. Do not say as soon as possible, because again, what's soon for you might not be soon for me. In this particular case, you would have possibly said, please let me know by Friday when a good time might be for us to collaborate. Right? And that is opening the door. It's calling to action. Make sure you always give them enough time, however, because giving them a 2-day notice might not work for somebody else. So usually in business time, you give somebody about a week's notice. If you're asking someone to do you a favor, you usually give them 2 work weeks, which would be Friday to the second Friday. All right. Many of you said that you would call because it's much more convenient and the tone couldn't be misinterpreted. But what you need to understand is that the telephone, by and large, has been superseded by written communication. An email is not as disruptive, and it is more convenient because you can read it at your convenience. That's why we're spending so much time learning how to write a good email so that you can get to the point, you can get a response. And also in business, quite often it's extremely important to have a written record of what transpired. And if you use the telephone, you would not have that written record. Tone, you said that the tone could be misinterpreted in email. Well, the tone could also be misinterpreted on a voice call. And that's, again, a major consideration in this course is using the right tone when you do write. Like, just as I said when you wrote that email, you have no right. You can't put that in an email. Some of you said sarcasm. Well, sarcasm is never acceptable, and you need to read your information to make sure that you do not come across as being sarcastic. Okay, so I hope you will use this feedback in general for this specific or for this assignment, but then throughout the remainder of the semester, so that if you respond in an email, you would then avoid the pitfalls that I just discussed. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And have a great week, and I'll be looking forward to receiving your assignments.